Stephen Griffin. Welcome to the show. Thanks for being here. Great to have you on.
Thanks for having me here. It's nice to finally e-meet.
Nice to meet you. We're doing this over Zoom for everyone listening. So, Steve, before we get you to share your absolutely incredible backstory, share something about yourself, Steve, that most people do not know.
Geez, I hate these. English isn't my first language.
No way, man. What is your first language?
Irish. I didn't speak English till I was 6 or 7.
Oh my God, insane. But we won't do this off square again. Steve, I used to work as a
No.
primary school teacher, and I'll tell you, the concept of use it or lose it, it can certainly be applied to fitness, but also it carries over to things like languages too. So, Lana Jurai, three bears, Steve. So, Steve, you've had like such an incredible journey. So for everyone listening here, Steve, he lost almost 110 pounds inside 8 months. Okay, so you went from 340 pounds or 155 kilos, and Steve, you got all the way down to like 106 kilos or 234 pounds. So before we talk about the journey, Steve, what I'd love to do is actually talk about how that actually started. So how did you kind of get to and really cap out at like 155 kilos? Like what were some of the habits, the routines, the bad practices, whatever you want to call them, Steve, that you would have had?
Yeah, I suppose it probably all started when I joined the Guards, and not through any fault of the Guards, but just my whole life changed. Like my routine changed, my work routine changed, my time off changed, everything changed on me very quickly. So it kind of set everything up in a bit of a spin. Um, I was actually really fit when I got into the Guards. I got a lot of PTing, just to pass the fitness test. I overthought it. Like I said to you, I tend to overthink things, and I was flying, absolutely flying. And then night shifts and middle of the day shifts and takeaways and all these things all started to, I suppose, creep in more and more often. I became very, I suppose, lazy after work, for lack of a better phrase. I wasn't very creative with my food choices. The physical laziness then started to manifest itself maybe in, say, my eating laziness. So I lived maybe 5 minutes away from the town centre. I mean, I could have walked
Yeah.
it in 15, 20 minutes and I still got to deliver it or just eat it. I was just that lazy. If it didn't come to the door, I was like, oh, you know, um, I suppose, habits set in over time. And I was justifying things to myself. I mean, I remember listening to a book, geez, probably 4 years ago now, The Power of Habit.
Yeah. Wow,
And
great
even,
book.
oh, it's incredible. It's an incredible book. But and Atomic Habits then as a follow on
And
by,
James Clear, yes, yeah. So
yeah,
Charles Duhigg, I think, was he the Power Habit,
yeah,
or is he the Power Habit? And then James Clear, Atomic Habits, two
that's
fantastic
it.
books for everyone. Yes, keep going there,
And
Steve.
and when you can listen to books sometimes and you don't really hear anything that's relevant to you. But I heard those and I was like, time after time going, oh, well, I do that. And it was just the simplest of things. Like I passed the same petrol station every week when I drove back to Kerry for work. I stopped there every week to get diesel. I then got my feckin' large mocha, feckin' whatever it was, latte, and my bun and my pack of jellies for the drive because that's
Yes.
just what I did.
Wow.
And in my day-to-day life, that's just what I do started to take over. And I'd be coming back from work at 5 o'clock and I'd pick up chocolate bar, I'd pick up a pack of crisps because that's just what I did to watch a bit of telly with. And over the course of time, I was getting in at 10 past 5
Compound.
at the latest, and I was just sitting there. I wasn't doing
Yeah.
anything for the evening. I was justifying bad decisions by saying there's a football match on, or my favorite show was on, or I was finding
Wow.
ways of justifying my laziness.
Wow. Yeah, and you know what? This is like I heard Tony Robbins actually speak about this that like up to I think or Charles Duhigg said it, like up to 48% of everything we do every single day is just done on autopilot out of habit, which is a great thing if you've built in some good habits, but maybe if there's some bad or limiting habits there, that can also be a scary thing. So your cue was okay, you're finished work, you're passing this petrol station. The routine was okay, I'm going to stop. I'm going to buy petrol, and then you see the mocha or the latte, whatever it might be. You see the bun, you see the sweets, and the reward is, of course, that nice feeling, that sugar rush that we get afterwards. Amazing, amazing. And I always kind of say, Steve, like it's okay for something to happen once. You know, we all have can kind of have off days, but there is a danger in like, you know, letting something compound and letting one day turn into two, and then 2 days turn into a week, turn into a month. Was that kind of the case for you, Steve, as you start your new job and you obviously had a new routine and structure?
Yeah, it felt as if it took over very quickly.
Yeah,
You know, I was so engrossed in the new job, and it was something I wanted to do for years. So it was
yeah,
all, I suppose, new and exciting and fast. You know, every day was so different that I was constantly thinking about that. It's not like, with no disrespect to office jobs or anything, but I would have found that very mundane. I couldn't do that. Couldn't sit in an
yeah,
office.
yeah.
So this was all high paced stuff happening the whole time. And afterwards, I almost felt like the constant need to maybe not reward myself. And after
Sure.
a while, it changed from being a reward system to like a comfort system. If you had a bad day or been to a maybe a nasty incident or an incident that wasn't so nice. But it all happened. It's kind of like, you know, the boulder coming down the hill.
Sure.
Maybe the initial
Okay.
push at the top of the hill is a bit
Yeah.
gentle. Then once it tips over that edge, it starts
Wow.
flying down.
And I'm curious, so Steve, if we were to put a time frame on this, so you obviously you passed the physical test when you joined the guards. Over what period of time would you have, like, you know, from joining the guards to getting to 155 kilos? Roughly, like how long are we talking here, Steve?
Maybe about 2 years. Maybe, and that's ballparking because I'm not
Yeah.
sure.
What was
So
your start rate?
August,
What would you have kind of what weight would you have been roughly, Steve, when you started the guards and
I'd say probably about 110. 110 seems to be like my happy place. And I hate
sure.
saying that because I know
Yeah.
we don't have like set weights, but it seems to be where I'm kind of
Okay.
where I have a nice balance, you know.
Gotcha.
So I
Yeah.
probably would have been about there somewhere, and
Sure.
then
Okay.
just very, very swiftly
Yeah.
took over, you know.
Yeah. Okay. So 45 kilos or nearly 100 pounds over the space of 2 years, Steve. And how did gaining that weight then, like, did that kind of impact upon your confidence, upon your lifestyle, Steve?
Oh, massively. Yeah. It got to a point where I didn't even really feel like me anymore. I'm quite chatty.
Yeah.
I'm very chatty. Um, I'm I love being the fella that makes the joke, the one that's like just on the line of being acceptable or not. So it has to be heard. And when I had gained that level of weight, that was the last thing I wanted. I did not want to be seen. I didn't want to be heard. And I'm 6'4" and I was 155 kilos. So being seen is going to happen. I can't
Yeah.
really hide. It's like an
Yeah.
elephant hiding behind a lamppost.
Okay. Oh, and I guess, Steve, then, like, they do say the pain, like pain is a great teacher too. And sometimes it can drive action and cause us to take action. You know, for me, I can definitely relate to this when I just said, look, I've had enough. I'm fed up. I'm no longer going to tolerate this. So what was your kind of aha moment, Steve, where you just said, right, this is the end. It's time to make things change. Like, was there any kind of one point you can pinpoint this down to, or was it just like an accumulation of things?
There was one major point with one, I suppose, little point that happened almost immediately after.
Yeah,
I was on the holidays over in Lanzarote,
yeah.
and second last night we were going for like a family dinner. We had done the obligatory shopping in the main shopping center, and I was there, and we did the poolside photos. And you know when you hold the shutter button on a phone, it takes any amount of photos. It takes 10, 20, 30 photos.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And the first one was fine ish. And then gradually they just got worse and worse because, like, you know, in the first one I'd stood up, chest out, sucked in, kind of hidden. And then as I moved, I started to slump forward, the gut came out, and there was just one photo, and I saw it, and I went, Jesus. And that was the first time. I had seen plenty of photos of myself, even though I tried to avoid them.
Yeah.
But that was the first time I saw myself so
Okay.
heavy or so overweight. And yeah, that was just when I decided. I was like, that's a brand new t-shirt. Like, I shouldn't be spilling out of that.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
I just saw it now, and something's got to give here. Like, it's now or never. It's kind of that, I suppose it's the bottom of the barrel moment where I either do something about it now or it gets worse.
Wow. Okay. And so you obviously did something about it, Steve. So tell me, like, what did you change then?
I was back to work that next, I think it was like Saturday, and I messaged Paul Dermody in between, and I was like, he's an old mate of mine, and he's a PT, and I remember just throwing out the olive branch. I was talking to him about Spanish coffee because I was in Lanzarote and he was living in Barcelona at the time, and it was just anything to start a conversation. It just needed to find a way of getting into the conversation for him to say, how you keep it, how are things going, and he did that, and I
Sure.
was like, it's not great, and I'd really like your help. And it's not an easy thing to do. It's not easy to
Of
accept that
course. Yeah.
you're not as great or as perfect as you might think you are, and that you might
Sure.
need a little bit of help. Um, but yeah, we teamed up for, it was actually 3 months initially, and I forced him into the fourth month because the fourth month, or the third into the fourth month, was December into January.
Oh my God. Awesome, man.
Yeah.
Incredible. Incredible. But I actually, that's such an interesting point, Steve, because a lot of people that a lot of people kind of say, I'm going to wait until insert perfect time. But the thing you don't understand is, like, if you want to make this a lifestyle change, and if you're in this for the long term, there's never going to be a perfect time. And the harder the season you're about to enter, so Christmas is probably the hardest season of all. But if you can come through that, and if you can get through that, relatively okay, that's actually how you build confidence, because no matter what is thrown at you, you can actually overcome it. You can get through it. So, man, that's really, really interesting. And I'm curious, so Steve, so you would have been working with Paul Dermody. Tell me, like, so at your highest weight of, would say, 155 kilos, how did your exercise training, like, would you mind just kind of talk us through, like, that kind of routine for you, see what's that look like for you? How did you progress things?
Yeah. Initially, very simply, very, very simply, it was, I suppose, and I can't put words in Paul's mouth, but it was to not shock my system for lack of oh, this is too difficult, I can't do this. It was a case of getting in from work and
Yeah.
just changing the clothes and going for a walk. There was a park, and it actually kind of half shames me to say it. There was a park like 200, maybe 300 meters away from me to walk around. And Paul was like, just go, just walk to the shop, walk to the butcher's, walk to whatever it is. You don't always have to take your car. One thing I did that helps me big time, and you'll appreciate it, having been talking about habits, was I brought my gym bag and I left it at the foot of my locker.
Love it.
So where I had the issue before of the travel home, where I used to get the crisps, the chocolate, the bun, the whatever it was, now I had broken the habit of sitting straight into my car. And to be honest, if I had left my gym bag in the car, I'd be quite inclined to just sit into it and leave without going. But now it was there. It was kind of the quintessential, sure, I might as well. Um, Paul sent me some training.
Unreal.
Nothing crazy initially. And I remember distinctly one day I was so tired, I was just wrecked. And I texted him, I was like, man, I couldn't do the third set or the fourth set. And he was like, I couldn't give a shite if you did 3, 4, 10. He goes, if you walked around the gym for an hour with two 10 kg dumbbells in your hands, he goes, that would have been fine. He goes, it's more than you were doing
100%.
last week. And I was like,
Brilliant.
that's a great point.
Oh, super. Man, this is so, like, I literally had this conversation with a client of mine today about, like, I'd rather you do 6 5-minute workouts than 1 30-minute workouts, because, as James Clear says, I feel we're relating to habits a lot here, Steve. It's just building the identity. I am. I am someone who exercises. I am someone who reads. I am someone who, eats well, or takes pride in my physical fitness, and just showing up is more important than what we actually get done. Man, that is insane. And tell me, so, like, in terms of nutrition, then, were you following a diet? Obviously you reverted back from the habit of the petrol station. So, like, what were some of the nutrition strategies you would have implemented, Steve?
I suppose the most important thing for me would have been actually learning about calories. And I know some people, like, there's the whole for and against argument, but I mean, I maintain if you're going to lose weight, you have to have a certain grasp of it. Whether
100%.
you do it your way or the way the clubs do it, whatever it is. I was into calories. I've been attacked online before because I've talked about calories, and people have been like, you don't have to count calories. They're obsessive. They're this. I think it's James Smith that says, like, if you're trying to save money, you keep an eye on your bank account. I was trying to save calories or trying to lose weight, so I was keeping an eye on my calorie budget. But learning about calories helped me break some of the stigmas that were there, like white bread is bad, or white potatoes are bad, or these things. Because then I'd scan them and I'm going, oh no, that slice of bread only has like 80 calories, and all of a sudden I was kind of saying to myself, well, I can have a slice of toast, or I can have a sandwich, I can have a Kinder Bueno, and it's not going to make me fat overnight.
Fantastic. Yes. So provided we don't overspend it, it's like that weekly budget. What you can if you get paid on a Friday, you can spend it all on Friday, or you can balance it out for the week. And the exact same with yourself, Steve. So I'm curious, like, do you remember like what kind of calories you would have been hitting, Steve? What's your kind of calorie ranges would have been like?
Oh, if it would have been quite high, really, because I was
Yeah.
such a big fella. It was over the 2000s, anyways. And I remember initially thinking, this isn't, not that it isn't too bad, but it was doable.
Sure.
And I think a lot of people think diet's going to be difficult. This is going to be tough. This is going to be gruesome, and I'm going to hate it. And I think a lot of people go into it with the negative mindset, anyways. So at the first little bump, they just go, fuck it. Whereas for me, from the day dot, Paul was like, listen, you can have your favorite foods. You can have 2 slices of pizza without having 6.
Awesome.
You don't have to completely rid yourself of enjoyment with food. You're going to have food for the rest of your life, so you might as well enjoy it. And at 155 kilos, I didn't have to be eating chicken and broccoli, because that's just not where I was. That's not what my goal was. My goal was to actually have a sustainable, I suppose.
100%.
So everybody has a diet. It's either serving you or it's not. So mine just needed to be better serving me. So like little things for me kept me sane. Like the little, the Kinder Fingers, the ones that have like 90 calories.
Yes,
They're like
yes.
super sweet. Like those things kept me sane. And curly whirlies.
100%. Yeah, yeah. And tell me, so Steve, like we always say, like progress is addictive, and when you see progress, you naturally want more. And what like how are you measuring your progress? Was it just all the number on the scale, or was it a combination of the scale, maybe how you felt, your confidence levels, clothes fitting better? What were some of your metrics of success, Steve?
Yeah, and it's going to sound a bit mad considering that most things I do, it starts with, a scale weight. A scale weight really wasn't, it was important, and it's a metric that I think most people get. Most people can see a number on a scale and understand it or resonate somehow. But for me, it was the fact that I was happy, the way my clothes fitted, the way I was training, the fact that now when I started like the 2K walk, now the 5K walk, and I was kind of more able, maybe I wasn't so out of breath. I was playing five-a-side soccer at the time, and you can imagine five-a-side soccer at 155 kilos. You're not that mobile. But it was like the pedometer on my watch. These things all added up over time, and they were all, I suppose, good indicators. Now, obviously, scale weight helped, but I ended up with a bit of a thing with scale weight over the last year and a half, where say at the time I was only weighing myself once a week. I've learned that that's not always the most indicative thing of how you've done over the past week.
Sure.
It's one given moment in time. There could be any cause of factors
One metric,
to show.
Absolutely.
Exactly, yeah. So
Yes.
it's I have a love-hate relationship with scales.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, because it can fluctuate so often, time of day. Even the freaking scales you actually use, it's got to be the exact same one, the surface. Okay, when you had your last meal, when you last went to the bathroom, your hydration, your salt intake. For girls, time of the month, all of these, there's so many different factors. So that's why we always say, Steve, it's important to have more than one metric of success. Like sure, the scale, but like pictures, clothes, as you were saying, maybe tape measurements, energy levels, confidence, how you're feeling. These are all, non-standardized methods that are still absolutely huge. And tell me so, Steve, because you mentioned, you weighed yourself once a week or so, and we all know success isn't linear. And I'm sure maybe there were weeks, Steve, where you had a lot of expectation of, oh geez, I was on point this week. I definitely lost X amount of pounds or X amount of kilos. How do you kind of deal with maybe some of those setbacks that I'd like any kind of tips there, if like dealing with maybe some setbacks when things didn't go as planned, just in relation to your weight?
Yeah, so I suppose for the first couple of months I was just just so stubborn. I'm a stubborn person anyways. So the first few months for me went like, really well in quotes, so my weight, I remember looking at it not that long ago on my fitness pal. I had the constant trend of down, 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 down. But eventually, like you said, it did get to the point where it was like maybe a flat line or maybe like a slight peak up.
Sure.
And I suppose an integral part of being able to get better at anything is being able to look at something. The sports cliche, you learn more with the loss than you do with the win.
100%, man.
It's kind of the same with weight loss. When you're losing, you just go, when I'm losing, it's okay. I don't have to really digest it or dissect it all that much. But for me, when something didn't quite go right, even if it was just my training, if I had a session and I was like, oh, that wasn't great, I'd look at what I ate, how I slept, how long I slept, what I did the day before. Is there a specific reason to this? So it was important for me to be able to look at the week before and say, is there a specific reason my weight went up? Did I do my best? Is there something like, am I just trying to blank out the fact that I might have had, loads, like you said, loads of salt yesterday? It's learning was important, and being able to look back at yourself and really get into the nitty gritty of what you've been doing and how you've been doing it. It was so important for learning to go forward.
100%. 100%. Yeah. So kind of like, it kind of seems like what you're saying there, Steve, is holding yourself accountable too for your actions. And, as Gary Vee says, do your actions match your ambitions? Okay, I want to lose weight. What do I want to do? What am I willing to do? What won't I do? And you know what? Maybe the last week, this wasn't on point. My sleep wasn't on point. My hydration wasn't on point. And just accepting that, fair enough, this just happened, but not seeing it as like the be all and end all, which I feel so many people do, Steve, there, whereby the experience would say, we'll just call it a loss or a failure. And then that's like the trigger of, oh, F this, I'm just going to go on a binge now. What kind of stopped you, or what spurred you on, Steve, to stay going, to stay consistent, even if you did encounter some small setbacks along the way?
The feeling of where I had been.
Brilliant.
That was huge for me, and I know it's not for everybody, and I've had this discussion in depth with Paul and with Brian Keane before. I think I align a little bit more with Brian in his, it's like fuel for your fire. Fire can burn down your house or it can cook your food. It's not inherently a good thing, it's not inherently a bad thing, but I had used the fuel of how I felt at my worst. And the week after, so I was saying there was like that moment, but there was like the little moment after where a colleague at work made a comment about my weight and made a comment about, Steve knows where to eat. They were looking for restaurant suggestions in Galway, and it stung. And I held on to that for months and months and months, but not in a dwelling over it. It was more of a, I'll kind of show you sort of thing. And to be fair, I haven't seen the fella since. I don't think I got transferred out to Kerry pretty soon after. Yeah. And he doesn't give a shite, and I don't give a shite. It works.
Awesome. Oh, that's incredible, man. I absolutely love that. Like using that pain in a positive way to spur you on, Steve, even if you were dealt with a setback. And tell me, so like you mentioned, and obviously it impacts your confidence. But then how did this change your life for the better then when you started seeing changes? What were some of like the big standout moments for you that you can say, wow, like this is incredible what I've done so far?
Yeah, so I suppose just the general day-to-day happiness and confidence aside, I was able to just walk into, Elvery's and buy a sports jersey. So I remember that being a big moment where I was able to just walk in and grab a jersey. I didn't have to go online and order like a 2XL or a 3XL. It was just there in the shop. My size was available to me.
Wow.
I had a lot of bad moments in clothes shops over the years where they couldn't facilitate me. They didn't have anything that fit, and this whole like skinny jeans revolution just didn't work well for me at all. It was a bad time. I was asked by a suit company in Galway, Suit Republic, to do some stuff with them, and there was just so many, I suppose, little moments, whether like the simplest things, like I said to you, being able to, I signed up, I did half marathons, I did 30Ks, stuff that 2 years prior wouldn't have even been in the discussion. Like this, I couldn't do that. That's for somebody else. That's not for people like me, kind of thing.
100%. Oh man, that's incredible. That's incredible. And you know what, Steve, like there's a danger too in just kind of saying, I'll be happy when I reach X weight, or I'll be happy when, I get X job or whatever. But there's a lot to be said too about like just the journey, and if just enjoying that journey, and just embracing all of the challenges, all the struggles that we go through. And I guess, Steve, what would you say to someone who puts all their self-worth and evaluates that just solely on their their body image of how they look? What would you say to someone who's kind of in that bracket at the moment, Steve?
Yeah. Do you mind if I bring in a personal story to it?
Of course, of course.
Because I haven't spoke about this anywhere yet. I didn't talk about it anywhere because I didn't know how to articulate it. But I did a shoot last year,
Yeah.
and I suppose the point where I was at weight, the
Yeah.
point that I'll be happy when I hit 93 kilos was probably when I was at my least happy.
Yeah.
I felt horrible. Like I just didn't. It played with my head a lot
Yeah.
straight after, and I've done a lot of reading and stuff since where I've learned that it's actually, from a psychological point of view, it's actually the lead up to the point that humans tend to find most fulfilling. It's the I'm doing things that I didn't do last week or the week before, or the month before. And it's extremely dangerous to put all of your hopes or to put all of your aspirations for happiness in a point in time that you actually can't resonate with. I did that. I remember specifically saying when I stood on a scale that 93 kilos was the weight I wanted to be, and that I'd be happy when I got to it. Not from a joyful point of view, but from the point of that's the time I have to, or that's the weight I have to be for my shoot, and I'd be happy when I get to it. And I just wasn't. And afterwards, it did affect me, but like not in a I was terribly sad kind of way, but it just affected my relationship with training, with food, with everything really, because I was in a bubble for a while. And it's like I said to you earlier, 110 seems to be my happy spot, where I'm at this nice balance of training, but I can have pasta if I want to, and
Sure.
it's like
Gotcha.
I'm not completely depressed all the time because I can't eat what I want to eat.
Yeah.
So whilst I'm a huge fan of envisaging what you want, pick a goal, see it, whatever it is, see the the large size jersey, or see the dress, or see whatever it is, and go for it. But don't assume that that's going to be where you're happy, because you might be happy at 5 kilos this side of it. You might not actually be happy at that weight. It's
100%.
there's a hell of a balancing act involved. It's really, really hard to juggle it.
Yeah, I think there's a great book by Morgan Housel called The Psychology of Money, and he talks about, if you kind of always put your happiness in the future, like I'll be happy there, wherever there is, whenever you get there, that becomes the new here, and then you move the goalposts always forward. But you gotta just celebrate the wins along the way. Steve, I can definitely relate to that too, where I'll be happy when I get this job, or I get a six pack. And then when you get there, you're like, is this all there is to it? I neglected X, Y, and Z all for this. So I think there really is something to be said for like just the journey. And maybe just, celebrating the wins, take a bit of time out, have a bit of fun as well along the way, and just be proud of yourself, like feel proud, like just look at yourself in the mirror and say, well done. I might not be there yet wherever there is, but you know what, I've come a long way. And compare yourself to where you were, as you said, the wins along the way. Compare yourself to where you were a month ago, 2 months ago, whether that is you were able to lift more weight now than you were then, or you were able to run a bit faster, you broke a PB, whatever it might be. They're the wins, they're the things that spur you on, not the actual end result. Man, that's incredible. And I feel this is a lot about mindset, as much like it seems like it was nearly as much mind over matter for you, Steve. And speaking of mindset, someone we can both definitely resonate and relate with. You share your story first. Tell me, David Goggins, you're a fan of his, Steve, and even just let's talk about the importance of when you're on this journey. I'm sure there are people there who said, Steve, go on, you go for the takeaway now, and we'll have a few here and there. Talk to me about, Steve, like just your inner circle, the importance of surrounding yourself with positive people who are in alignment and who actually support you.
Yeah, it was huge. It was one of the first things that Paul really, I suppose, asked me to look at. It was like, just look at who's around you. Is there any, I suppose, factors that's coming from them that's impacting your decisions? Is it not a peer pressure thing, but are you doing it to maybe keep people happy? And for me at work, there was a huge, go on, we'll get chips, go on, we'll get breakfast, go on, we'll get, and you want to be one of the lads, you know, and you kind of pressure yourself. Like there was no pressure coming from the 3 or 4 lads I worked with to, you know, come on, if you don't come with us, you're out of the gang. Like that just wasn't a thing. But for myself, I was like, geez, if I don't go now, are they going to judge me? And I think that came with a lot of my own low self-esteem, low self-confidence at the time, that I felt that this is do or don't now, this is make or break. And like afterwards, I used to go with the lads. I'd have a coffee, I'd have an omelette, I'd have something. But in my head, if I didn't have the fryer, I didn't have the chips like the lads, you know. But for Paul, it was simple. It was look at the lads, look who you're taking advice from, look at who you're listening to. And that doesn't have to be physical people. It could be books or podcasts. It could be
100%.
any noise that's getting into your head. Like some of the people in my circle, I saw Paul very little because he was in Spain, but I spoke to him a lot. Brian Kane was in my circle, Shane Walsh in Dublin.
Yeah.
I didn't see the lads all that often, spoke to them a lot, and I listened to them a lot of their podcasts. There was other people. Ethan Suplee was a big one for me. He's an American actor. He's in Remember the Titans. Huge fella, lost a load of weight.
Wow.
And I was cool enough recently, he featured me on his podcast.
Oh
So
my
I
God,
was like,
incredible, man.
crazy how it came full circle. It was just so,
Unbelievable.
it was like, you know how like people joke about fanboying? I was freaking the fuck out. I was chatting to him like a couple of weeks before, and I was freaking out. And he's such a normal fella, and you know, it's just so important. Like I would have been one of the people that would have listened to Tommy down the road there talk about, geez, you have to do sprints now if you want to lose weight.
Yeah.
Because you know that's what the football team did 40 years ago. And I was 155 kilos, and sprints, you know,
Not the
weren't going to
most
do a lot for
joint-friendly
me.
thing, yeah.
No. And
Yeah.
I would have thought to myself, I can't do that. I'm never going to lose weight. And because I listened to somebody who wasn't in a position to give any advice, I mean, Tommy down the road there didn't do sprints himself, but sure, it's just what he heard. Yeah, so like maybe 4 or 5 people in my inner circle that I actually listened to and gave a shit about their opinion, for lack of a better phrase. And like my circles were different. My fitness circle and maybe my day-to-day life circle were different. So I took advice from different people on different things. I didn't listen to, you know, some fitness personality give me advice about work because, you know, maybe they just didn't get it.
Gotcha, of course.
But so important, the noise you let into your head, so important.
Wow, that's awesome. And I love the way you said there as well, Steve. Even if it's also in relation to books, it's in relation to podcasts, it's the television series you're watching, it's how you spend that downtime, it's what you watch on YouTube. All of these things are impacting you positively or negatively. So you can kind of choose what you let in, what you let in. Like for me, Steve, I don't even freaking watch the news anymore or listen to the radio. Like honestly, for the most part, I could barely tell you what's going on. But what I do choose, like I decide and I choose what I listen to. So I listen to podcasts that make me feel good, that I know the information is going to be relevant to me. And I think there's a lot to be said for not necessarily taking advice off someone who you wouldn't swap places with. And for you, Steve, as well. So why don't, like, I know for me, David Goggins, I heard him first speak on Joe Rogan back in 2018, March 2018 it was. And within like 2 or 3 days, I just said, feck this, like I got to do something. So I just signed up for a marathon because I was thinking, what is the most difficult thing that I could do to really challenge myself? And that was like, you know, that was what I could think of at the time. But tell me for you, Steve, like I heard you say previously, he kind of had his tough love approach, maybe that resonated with you a bit, Steve.
Yeah, I have a signed copy of his book there, and it is like my most prized possession. It's still
incredible.
It's still in the bubble wrap that I got it from. I'm like, nah, I'm keeping this. Yeah, Goggins for me, it just fell into my life just at the right time. You know, like I've read books before and I've listened to things before and they've not resonated because they didn't really apply. But like I read his book and I was listening to him speak about how he was overweight, how he wanted to lose weight to get to a certain goal for a certain job. Yeah. And he, like I said earlier, I'm stubborn, he's ridiculous. And I suppose I have like an aggressive mindset in ways. That's why I said I kind of line up with Brian Key more than I do with Paul. And I just felt like, this guy, I don't know how to put it, but like I liked his vibe. And I was like, his real can do, fuck you attitude. And he's going to do it and he doesn't give a shit. And he's going to get there. And it's a bit like you doing the marathon. I'm going to do it and that's it.
And like they say, a goal is a dream with a deadline. And the great thing about signing up for the marathon is, look, it's on the 28th of October, and the event, the time, the date, it's there. You've got a schedule. Let's freaking go. Let's do it. And for anyone out there, listen, the David Goggins book. I'm curious how he got it signed. It's called Can't Hurt Me. How did you get a signed copy, Steve? That's unbelievable.
Yeah, there was a special period where he was celebrating something and there was so many of them available. And he did an Instagram live where he signed like, I don't know how many of them, but it was the most boring fucking Instagram live ever because it went on for hours and it was just him going, signing one book, putting it to the side, signing one book, putting it to the side. I'm never getting rid of that book. But you're right though, and that was my thing about running. You had a date, you had a time you had to complete it in, you had a distance to cover. It's like one of the easiest things to work towards, but you know exactly what you have to do.
100%. 100%. And even when you said about the photo shoot last year, I booked one, and then once I booked it, it's like, okay, right, I'm actually doing this now. I'm not going to back out because I'm going to hold myself accountable to my word. I think there's a lot of power in that, Steve. And just as we kind of wrap things up, Steve, I often kind of speak with people prior to starting, and look, it's something I can relate to. I'm by no means polished, where we all have these like self-limiting beliefs, like I was always the chubby one in school, or I was always overweight, or it must be nice for Steve, but I'm different because X, Y, and Z. So for anyone out there, whether we'll just obviously relate it to weight loss. For anyone out there who thinks that, they're incapable of changing, that they're not actually able to, lose this weight or look the way they want to look, like, what would you kind of say to those people, Steve?
At the risk of sounding like Barack Obama, yes, you can.
I love it.
If you can gain it, you can lose it. All right, there's no, it's not like a one-way valve. I did that for years and years. I was the heavy one. I was the goalkeeper because I covered the most space in the goal because I was so big. Like the running, other people do that. I don't do that. Even going to the gym, I was like, I'm not able for that. I'm not the kind of person that does that. But you can make yourself this kind of person if that's what you think. These people don't exist. I'm going to be honest with you. I used to have a gym phobia. Not gym phobia. It makes it sound worse than it really was because I was in teams and in gyms as a result. But when I started the journey, I went to big gyms, and there's lads in there with their stringers and their snapback on backwards, and I'm kind of looking at them going, I don't belong here. They don't give a shit because they're busy with their own stuff. And that 100%. Environment, if you can find a gym environment that is positive and uplifting, it's worth its weight in gold because everyone's in there to better themselves. Nobody goes to the gym to make themselves worse.
Absolutely.
And
oh wow.
There's a vibe when you go to it, like I love going to like heavy weight gyms, where lads
old
are like
school
power lifters and big rusty weights because man, they are the hardest of the hard, and they're the most. It's the most basic but the most extreme at the same time. And there's no reason in the world, like I know there are certain things that are impossible. I'm never going to be an astronaut. I'm never going to break the 100 meters. But that's why it's so important to set goals for yourself that are actually attainable. Not so attainable that you do it in 2 weeks and you're kind of done with it then, but attainable to the point that you're not heartbroken because you don't do it. It's finding that goal that is just on the periphery of this is really going to test me, but I'm going to be a better person for it.
Gotcha. I like it.
You want something that's going to test you because you grow with it. You grow with 100%. Being put under pressure, and you grow with failures. Failure's only fine if you let it be. And like I said earlier, you dissect the losses. You figure out what went wrong. You look at it. You readdress, and you keep moving forward. It really is about having a good foundation, whether that's the accountability of a personal trainer, which is what I needed, especially at that period. Remember when I said I needed the extra month of Paul for Christmas?
100%. Get through that. I knew what I had to do,
but I just needed Big Brother to be watching, and it's awful easy sometimes you set off on a journey by yourself to sure, who knows, sure, nobody's going to know I had the extra biscuits, or nobody's going to know I skipped the gym. Bad habits kick in, but so do good habits. And if you make a habit of going for your evening walk, or a habit of going to the gym after work, that's what it becomes. It becomes a habit.
I love it.
So anybody can do, you can lose weight, you can go to run races, you can go compete, you can be a bodybuilder if you want, provided there's nothing medically stopping you. There's no reason psychologically that you can't.
I love it, man. I think that's, what a great way to kind of wrap this up. Absolutely. Such power in everything you said there. And just like, I think it again, it comes back to that identity, like just saying I am. For me, like something, I guess just with technology now, Steve, like it's something I feel challenged with, just to sit down and actually read a book and leave the phone aside and not be, responding to the messages, checking Instagram, scrolling through Facebook. And it definitely can be challenging at times, but I love, again, like going back to James Clear, like he kind of talks about building identity. So some days that I can't read a lot, I'll just literally read one page. And look, did I learn a lot in that page? No, I didn't. But I'm building the identity that I am. I am someone who reads every single day. So, for someone out there who thinks that you got to train 7 times a week for 30, 45, 60 minutes, you don't. But what you do got to do is get out of that all or nothing mentality, that you don't have to be 10 out of 10 perfect, that you adjust the dial. That sometimes going for a walk, you might have planned to work out, but for whatever reason, it didn't happen. But going for a walk, it's better than nothing. Or having the 2 slices of pizza. You don't have to have the full pizza, as Paul was saying. You don't just have to press the effort button and just go all out. That always something, it's better than all or nothing. So something I can definitely relate to there. And I actually love the way you mentioned the gyms too, Steve. I'm not sure if you know Ben Bruno. He's a celebrity trainer based in LA, and he trains pro athletes. He trains like these, Hollywood high ticket actors who are on multi-million, huge money each year, and he trains them in his garage gym, which doesn't even have a squat rack. All right, so you can you go to the gym with all the fancy equipment and the best, the next level equipment, but really, like, it just comes down to having the few basics, and you can really get it done from anywhere. So, Steve, look, first of all, I just want to acknowledge you now. Thank you so much for coming on. I think your journey, man, it's just so incredible. It really is an inspiration, and it just goes to show. Look, Steve isn't a Hollywood actor. Steve is a guard. He's from Galway, Ireland. He grew up speaking Irish as his first language. He's no different to you and I. So if Steve can do it, it just goes to show, literally anyone can do it. No matter where you are, we're all capable of making change. We're all capable of progress. And so, Steve, before we wrap things up, just currently training nutrition-wise, are you currently training towards anything? I'm curious in that end, Steve. What does life look like for you at the moment?
Fucking 100 miles an hour. It's do you ever have one of those periods in life where everything is busy? Do you know, where personal life is busy? I'm currently in the process of I suppose, a planning application for a house, and everything with that seems to be just 100 miles an hour. And then my personal life is busy, work is busy, so it's all just, I suppose, I'm grateful for the release that the gym or exercise provides. I'm kind of doing a bit of strength training at the minute because I enjoyed the training during the cut. But I've always been, and my mate Shane Walsh laughed at me so much, I love volume. I love volume training. I love sets upon sets upon sets of reps. And he's like, you can't keep doing that. Eventually you're going to crash. And I'm like, so what?
Here I am.
I was like, if it happens, it happens. I was like, till then, I'll be real happy. But that's pretty much where I'm at right now. There's so much going on that. Yeah, it's class though. It's like the best kind of 100 miles an hour.
I'm still getting it done, man. That's awesome. Steve, final 2 questions before we go. So firstly, I'm just big into routine or structure, and I'm just curious for you, Steve. Seeing as things are 100 miles an hour, do you have what do the first 30 to 60 minutes of your day look like? Do you have a bit of a morning routine going for you, or is it just straight off the cuff, whatever happens?
Possibly the worst person in the world to ask this, because our shifts are so strange.
Sure,
I'll give a normal.
gotcha.
I suppose I'll go with the morning routine. It's awake, coffee, audio book, on the way to work. I like to try and not have dead time. And to be fair, at 6 a.m, there's not a whole lot of people bothering you. Like we're saying, the phone is always blinging. There's always phone calls and texts and emails. That time in the morning, nobody's bothering me. So it's my chance to learn a little. It's like I have an hour where I can get some good information into my head, whether it's just listening to an autobiography that I'm reading that I can take something from, or listening to a podcast where I'm learning, about nutrition or training. And then I'm in work. So it's crazy 12 hours after that. So
I love it. Yeah, absolutely. Make your commute, as Brian Kane says, a library on wheels. Something I did as a teacher, instead of listening to the radio, just listen to podcasts or listen to audiobooks of something that's actually going to, bring you self-development. And finally, Steve, this is the Lifestyle Lifters show. So I'm just curious for you, what does living a successful lifestyle look like for you?
It's corny, but happiness. I spent a long time not happy. I suppose really I spent a long time hiding and trying to be as sheltered as I could. And for me now, it's just being happy and doing things that bring me enjoyment because I want to, and not trying to avoid them. Like I said earlier, there's actually a period of time there where I don't have photos, so I stayed out of them. Just didn't want to be seen, didn't want to be heard, and it's all different now. It's not that I'm painful to be around, I hope, but yeah, just happiness. I don't think there's any better metric. You can be 200 kilos, man, but if you're happy, you're happy, and I think it's the number one goal really for everybody.
Steve, thanks so much. No better way to wrap this up. This has really been incredible and just absolutely amazing. Steve, just before we go, where can people actually learn more about you, about your journey? Where's the best place that people who want to find out more about you, Steve?
Instagram is pretty much the only place. I tried setting up Medium and doing all these things, but I didn't have the heart for it. I didn't have the time for it. I'm on Instagram, Steve's Weight Loss. So
Steve's Weight Loss. Steve, I'll post a link in the show notes. Steve, thanks so much again for coming on. This has been absolutely awesome.
Thanks for having me.